Hello, friends. So good to be with you today. Today, I've got a very special guest. My guest today is Geri DeVita, an amazing woman with a wonderful, wonderful story. Her journey has actually taken her from tragedy and desperation to vision, strategy, success. It's really gone a long way and done some amazing things. And although she now runs a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, her story isn't just about money. It's something much more. It's about rising from heartache, reclaiming purpose, rebuilding your life with courage, with conviction. And that's so important, because if you've ever felt like it was just too late to start over, if you ever just felt like you would face so many things that you just think, I just can't move forward, I just really believe her voice is going to remind you that your story, regardless of what you've been through, your story is not finished. So welcome, Geri. Thank you so much for being a part of this and joining with me. I know there's a lot of people right now that's listening who, for one reason or another, have maybe lost heart. They lost hope. I mean, there's been times in my life personally where I just felt like I faced things I didn't know what to do about. And, you just kind of stand there and look at it. And obviously, your life's been a journey from a very young age to where you actually referred, and we'll get to this a little bit later, you referred to yourself as a statistic. And that's huge. Yet your journey has gone from that statistic to a very successful, debt-free life. And I just want to talk today about overcoming barriers. I want to talk about making transitions and kind of understanding the value even of risk-taking. What does that feel like? So as we begin this, can you just kind of lay some groundwork as to where you started and kind of bring us up to date, maybe give us a snapshot or two just on the overview of how your life has been defined by your hurdles and by some of the things you've been through?
Absolutely. And first, thank you for having me. This is a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Life was not easy. When I started out, I was pregnant at 14 and had to make early on at a very young age. And it kind of blows my mind now when I think about it and I look at my grandchildren, right? But at a very young age, to how did I overcome that? I was faced with choices at that point in time to, do I have an abortion? Right? I mean, it was legal.
Were people encouraging you to get an abortion at that time?
Yes, actually, I had one scheduled, and I didn't do it. So if I go kind of back in time and I think about my early upbringing, I wasn't raised in a church. I wasn't raised with a wealthy family. My mother was on services, various different relationships and marriages. And so, as a young woman and a teenager, I didn't really learn or have a role model to go from, other than when I was up through, I think, 8 years old. I had gone to the Catholic Church through catechism, learned the 10 Commandments, learned all that. And I really think that was my deep down foundation. And as I think through life and all of the pieces that I've had to go through, the tragedies and the good things and bad things, right? I've always kind of had that as my moral compass. So I didn't have the abortion. I had to educate myself. I did get married at 15. And my mother, we went to Nevada and she said I was 16 because you can't get married at 15. I was in California. And so, that was just another kind of piece, moving forward. But that ended up being, I think, one of the best decisions and things that I did in life, because it helped me get grounded. It helped me really look at my values, and I did not want to be divorced. I ended up, after 10 years, getting divorced and married the love of my life. Now we'll be married. We've been together 39 years, married almost 38. So that was, another good decision. But I had to really push myself through work. And I did that because I didn't feel comfortable being under control and not having any control of my life. And so work gave me a sense of purpose.
I want to go back if I can.
Yeah.
I want to go back to, you were 14 and pregnant, 15, you're married. And I'm not even going to ask what you were thinking, because at 15, I don't know that you are thinking at 15 years old. Right. You're just kind of facing life, but already everything has been set into motion for you. I mean, there's not you don't really have much choices at that point. It's almost like everything has been, if you choose the expression, has been baked in, and suddenly now you've got a life for the next few years that's going to be pretty controlled, pretty predictable. What was your emotional state in that time?
So I think what was I thinking? I don't know.
That was a long time ago. I mean, was it like a sense of depression? Was it a sense of just?
No, actually it was none of that. I mean, I felt like I just had to do. And I think that has been my saving grace throughout life, is I just do things. And, I'm a problem solver. I can get in. And so I knew I needed to be a good mother. I decided to keep this child. And, and so my life was surrounded around him, but also I knew I needed to do something for me. And so I made the decision at that point in time to put myself through school. I signed up for a vocational school. And at 17, I took my schoolwork to a job interview and got my first job, landed the first job, right? It was that determination to just, that drive. And that's why I kind of say my foundation and my moral compass, I think, was defined in my younger years when I was going through learning, about Jesus and the Bible, and not really knowing or understanding any of it until my, probably the last 15 years.
It seems to me like that, and I think we've everybody approaches everything with caution. There's a resilience in people to bounce back no matter what. I remember when I was a kid, Jerry. Of course, my early days are a little bit different than your early days, but back in those days, we just leave the house and not come back until dark.
You're riding a bike and having fun.
Yeah. Well, and I come back and I had bruises and cuts and scars and everything that you can imagine. But it was like and even the environment we was raised in, there was such a resilience. Nowadays, it's almost like we prevent our kids from getting out of the yard. I mean, everybody is terrified, and we've built such a protective barrier around them that I wonder if that doesn't do them an injustice to hide them from hardships. Because really, in a way, I mean, obviously the hardships that you went through, and you've gone through some real ups and downs. I won't go into that, but I look at raising a family, or the way that a lot of people, they're so protective. These helicopter parents, that the child literally is not allowed to face any kind of hardship at school. I remember at school when we got SWATs and they worked. I mean, that was the old days. It really was. And now it's almost like, because those days you really had the feeling, if I get SWATs at school, I'm going to get SWATs when I get home. It isn't going to stop there. But nowadays, it's almost like parents are so protective that they won't even allow their children to go through any kind of difficulty. And I'm not sure if that's not just raised such a weak, frail mindset for people to grow up with, that kids, that they grow up and they don't have. I mean, you the time that I've known you are tougher than a boot. But then again, as I look back at your framework as to where you came from, I'm thinking, no wonder. I mean, you've been through some hardships that I'm not sure didn't just lay steel in your character. And the things, 14 years old, being pregnant, 15 years old, being married, going right in, you're getting work, you're hustling I mean, and I'm just wondering if the what has made you today is not the hardships. Maybe I'm not even saying that right. The hardships that you've been there has shaped your character and developed the strength in you that's allowed you to accomplish what you've accomplished today.
I think so. I had someone ask me this a few years ago, and they thought that I worked like a waitress or something like that, where you are dependent on income. And I said, no, I never have. I've worked a corporate role for 45 years and climbed myself up that ladder and just, worked hard for everything. And I think that's part of what made me, like you're saying, right? And even today, when I speak to my 14-year-old granddaughter, people are too protective of their children. They don't know what life's about. And I talk to them about everything. I mean, even, pregnancies, watching, be careful of having this discernment in them to be able to really see how they may be taken advantage of, to finances, anything and everything is what I speak with them about, so that they build that strength, because you need the strength and you need to know who you are to be able to survive in today's world.
How do you raise your children or your family in that knowledgeable way without being afraid of everything? It's because you're right. It's everything. There's certain things on my phone. There's links that come up that I don't want to answer. You open those things. I remember one time I got a link and I opened it and it crashed my computer. And so you obviously we've got things coming from outside, but yet to not be to deal with hardships, to deal with the difficulties, to deal with challenges, risk, but not spend your life afraid. I just, to where you're imprisoned. And I see so many people, it's almost like they're literally imprisoned by they're imprisoned by their fear, the
Right.
things that could happen or might happen or whatever. Where is the balance in that?
That's a good question, right? Because we all are going to face hardships, right? I mean, everyone has them. I don't know anybody who doesn't. And it's how you deal with it and not numb yourself to some degree, because you have, an addict, right, is typically numbing themselves from something and they're going towards that drug. Mine was a workaholic. I numbed myself in work to be able to parse out my heart and to be able to work through at the pace that I could grieve or work through. And that's part of when I'm teaching and speaking with my grandchildren, more now than and my children, years ago. But in today's world is you have to, I tell them, you have to be able to think through and work through this, because no matter what we face, there's going to be a door that we can go through, right? It's going to be a good one or it's going to be a bad one. It's all about choices. And one of the models that I live by is I can only control me. I can't control anybody else, right? And so so look at your heart and look at what you can control, and you've got to get thick-skinned to some degree, right? To be able to go, well, that's not me, it's them.
I've always said I think I had a short memory. Yeah, but you've been through some really difficult things, and I really would like to hear how you respond to that, because even the progress of where you're working with people now on fixing their financial situations, helping them become healthy financially, there's still a lot of things they've got to work through. But you've the mindset with that. If I could bring up a very personal thing, you lost a child.
I did,
and which to me. Jerry, I can't think of anything worse than that. I literally, I can't, what do you do with that? And I think we've got to know in advance. I've tried to talk to my girls and I'd say, here's the deal. When we face this is who we are and this is what we do. If we have a financial disaster, this is who we are. This is what we do. If we face death in the family, this is who. But still, how do you do? Because I haven't been there. I don't know. I can say from the cheap seats, this is how I'd be. But how do you deal with that? And how did you process that to help get through that?
It was so this was my firstborn. So this was one of the things that I really had to struggle with. I had him at 15 and he passed at 15. Oh. So I used to think that, okay, so is God getting back at me because I was pregnant young? I did these wrong things, right? And I really had to wrestle. I don't personally do counseling. I really look inside myself and go in my heart and really kind of reflect and meditate. And I do that on a lot of decisions that I make, probably all of them, if I really be honest with myself. Yeah. But at that point in time, we made a decision to let my son ride with his 18-year-old uncle to go to the family cottage. His father was going to be up there. And I heard there was a car accident. And I just kept thinking, well, he's fine, right? You know, I didn't hear anything about him. I knew his uncle was rushed to the hospital. And then you get the phone call. And I don't wish this on anyone. But that phone call, when I picked it up, was, we think we have your son. We have a body that's unidentified, and we need you to drive up here. And I still, like, as I'm saying this, I can feel myself choking up a little bit, even though it's been 40 years. It's been a long time, right? And but you never forget it, and you have to find a way to work through it. The interesting thing was that we picked up my ex-husband, and my husband drove us up there, and I had to do the unimaginable, the unthinkable, and identify that it was him. And I just initially just went through the motions. It's like, we need a funeral. We need, I just built my task list like I did with work, right? Like, here's what I have to do. I actually stood up and did a speech at that service. And I don't even know how I got through all of those things, like where that strength came from. It was just doing. And then I had to figure out how to grieve. And one of the things that I know today that I keep telling myself, and I just said this to someone the other day too, I always am looking for, it could be worse. Now, what could be worse than losing a child, right? But it could have been. He could have been kidnapped, and I would have never had finality. I would have never known that he was dead or alive. And so I would tell myself that story, like, it could be worse. And so I've got to pick up, and I have to just kind of move forward. But I didn't really grieve. I threw myself into work and learned a lot of great skills and climbed the ladder, and, which made me who I am. And that's one of those decisions where you can go, should I have taken more time off? Should I have grieved? I did it in my way, but it wasn't until 2016. And my daughter she said, my husband wanted to know why John's picture is not on the wall. Well, it was in the hallway, and it was in the bedroom, but it wasn't in the living room front and center. Yeah. It is now. And that's when I realized I never really grieved. And that now I can, I look at that picture every night when I'm sitting in the family room. And, sometimes I might tear up, sometimes many times I don't. But I'm thankful that, that was said to me, and that I had to learn how to grieve.
That is such an impossible hurdle. What would you say? How would you respond to someone that's going through that right now? What do you feel like? How should they handle that?
So
it's hard for me to even wrap my brain around how to even ask the question, because that is such a horrific thing for someone to go through. And it literally, to me, I would think that they would almost need someone to take them by the hand and guide them through it.
Yeah. A friend of mine that is here in town, she lost her, I think he was 5 months old last year. It's just over a year now. And she was in a car accident. She got hit, and her little baby ended up passing. And I just talked to her a month ago or so. I gave her a grieving book. I went through the church, one of the grieving courses. And so I gave her that to read. And I just talk with her. And a lot of times it's just listening, right? I mean, someone they just need to speak. They don't need you to tell them what to do. They just need to know that you're there to hug them and love on them and let them cry and let them say what they want to say. And then I just reassure, like, it's going to take time. At 40 years old, I still, 40 years later, I still will tear up, and you're going to have those moments, and just take them. Right. Yeah. But take it at your pace, and the one advice I gave her, because she has 2 other kids, is to don't distance herself. Right. Grieve with them, and to stay active in with her children. And she's got a mommy support group that she's gone to now, which I didn't do. Maybe that would have helped me grieve earlier as well.
I've seen several people that lost a loved one, and they separated themselves. It was like they go hide or something, and it's never seems healthy to me. Never seems to work out. And I know that I don't even know that time heals that. I know there's a difference between a scar and a wound. The scar will always be there. Maybe it's not the wound that it was at one time, but I just, I truly, those see things like this, whether it be a death, whether it be the loss of a career, maybe the loss of something else. that really has shaped people's lives. You know, you gave reference to your life as being a statistic. Well, that's because of the things that you had gone through, and there's just a lot of people that they stopped midstream. It was almost like they got to that place and they just quit. They just didn't know what to do. And I think many times they become alcoholics, they become drug addicts, they lose their family, they just disconnect. And I just, you know, I know that this is, you can't get bigger than this, but there also, it can be a thing. It can be bankruptcy. It can be things that seem overwhelming to them. It could be the loss of a friendship or the loss of a job, because it's almost like they lose hope.
Yeah, you can grieve over anything, and all those things that you just mentioned, you know, are things that you grieve. Like, you know, you didn't get that promotion. When I think about our journey financially, right? You know, we're in our 50s and we have $350,000 worth of debt. You know, I'm working paycheck to paycheck. Basically, we living life, you know, it was, if we could afford the payment, well, then that's good. Let's just, you know, take that on.
Yeah.
And some people might say, you know, it's too late. I've actually had people tell me that I'm 62, it's too late. And I'm, no, it's not. I mean, you know, Colonel Sanders didn't define or create Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was like 65 or 68. Like, it doesn't matter your age. It's just a number. It's the skills that you have to learn to be able to get a hold of it. And, you know, that's what we did. We just, again, stepped forward. Like, how do we problem solve this?
One of my favorite stories that I remember, I had come across a Reader's Digest. This was 30 years ago. And it had a picture of Orville Redenbacher, the guy that came up with the gourmet popcorn. And of course, he came up with this back in I think it was in the 60s. And the thought of gourmet popcorn in the 60s was truly laughable. Because
Right.
there wasn't anything like that. And he made a statement because he tried and everybody's rejecting, literally everybody was rejecting him. He was driving from town to town, but he made the statement, and this is what stuck with me. He said, was I at 65, 64, something like that? Was I, let's say 65, was I at that age pursuing a foolish dream? And it hit me. I thought, how many people at 65 are just looking to retire and go to the lake and quit? And here this guy he's pursuing a dream. And in your book, you co-authored that book, and one of your chapters was Never Too Late. And I think that's something I really want to hear, because when someone hears the title Never Too Late, you know, well, exactly what does that mean? What do you hope when you're preaching that particular message? What do you hope that they'll feel, or what do you really hope they will expect? In other words, is it too late to start over? A lot of people at 50, 60 years old listen, I mean, if I could even take it a little bit further, things have gone up so much. Housing has gone up so much. How do you survive? It isn't like it was 40 years ago. How do you survive now when your mortgage payment is ridiculous? And so how do you start over without thinking that it's too late?
Yeah, that's that title just came to me as I was writing it, because I was 55 when we started our financial freedom journey, and I was able to early retire at 62. I still work, but I work for myself when I want and travel when I want as well, right? But what I did know, and this was the driving factor, and I was sitting in a conference room with a mentor learning some of his teachings. By the way, he was a school teacher making $35,000 a year and is worth multi-millions right now in what he did. And he's now 50, you know, and so he started out the same way, you know, no money, having to learn skills and going into to doing this work, which is why he's now a very good friend, mentor, and business partner of ours. But one of his sessions, there was a video he played on YouTube, and this gentleman was 80 years old. And this is what touched my heart. And I thought, I don't want to be a statistic. And you know, is Social Security going to be here in 10 years? God, they've been saying that forever. It's going to be gone, right? You know, all the services that you have to have. And I think because my family originally was that way, I made the choice that I don't want to be that way, that I need to change our trajectory of our lives. And so this man was 80 years old, a Walmart greeter, on medication with his wife. He did not get his pension because they closed down the plant that he worked for at 29 years. So he has Social Security and he has to work at Walmart, right? So that was just one of the pieces where it was like, I can't do that. He's like, yeah, I would love to be at the lake fishing every day, but it's not my choice, right? And he's happy as can be. So when we looked at that and I listened to that, I thought, I have to do what it's going to take. And I think that's part of the problem with today's society is a lot of people won't make that decision.
Right.
What is it going to take for me to do it? Right. And how to look at your money and how to analyze it and understand what's essential, which is versus lifestyle. Right. So if I go to the store and I want to buy Wagyu beef, well, that's lifestyle. I don't need to spend, I don't buy Wagyu beef, by the way, but, but if I wanted to, right. Like, that's, what is it? $40 a pound or something? I don't even know. Where you can buy a steak or you can buy the chicken. There are things that if you make them versus processed,
right,
a lot cheaper. So part of what we did is we made the list and we just started tithing, and we took our 20% and paid down debt and started investing in it. And before I actually early retired, we were living on 60% of our income and just investing everything. And those initial 18 months, I essentially worked 80 to 100 hours a week. I did not have a weekend. Every non-working hour, job working hour, I was working our business with our family, my husband and my daughter, right? We were out doing what it took to hustle because it meant that much to us. The beauty is now we have these skills. I'm getting ready to launch our first class to teach individuals these same skills. And that's kind of like, we call it our second mountain. There's a book out there that's good to read because it tells you, like, what do you do? Because your identity is your job, right? Like most people, wouldn't you say the identity is the job? And I kind of think it is. And so it was, when you leave, what does retirement mean to you? So these are questions that we'll be asking people. What does financial security mean? Because what financial security means to me might not what it means to you. How much do you need to live on? And know that it's going to increase, right? So if you can make or build investments that will pay for that. So say your number's 5,000. If you have 10 houses that are paying you $500 a month in rent, $500 doesn't seem like a lot. That's probably less than a car payment today, right? But if you had that and you now are having that come to you on top of your Social Security, we don't count that because, we don't know if we'll ever have that still. But if you have that and you're earning that income, then now you can support yourself and you can support the lifestyle that you want to live. And maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 10,000. You get to choose, but it's just challenging your thinking to get you to really understand where your money goes, what you're spending it on, and how to shape it so that it helps you with your dream.
But I mean, you obviously, you are a visionary, and you're going to see things that a lot of people don't see or afraid to see, or it comes a point. How late is too late to start over? I don't see how I could ever accomplish that. I see where you're at, but I don't see how I can get there. You're talking about establishing wealth, getting rental properties, or getting whatever the case might. How do they start?
Yeah.
I mean, where were you at whenever you were just thinking, okay, I got nothing, I'm in trouble here?
So it's a good question, right? And it's individualized with each person,
right?
So and where they're at, and knowing where they're at, and what they want to give up on. So the first thing that we did is we listed all of our money. Where was it going, right? And then it was like, okay, I have $400 that I can now cut out. Like, we gave up DirecTV for 6 months. We have it back now, and I hate that I cost me $150 a month, but it's important.
Some things we need to hang on to,
Right. But it's again, it's individual choices, and
Right,
then
of course.
you find out and say, and it's a short period of time. You're not giving it up for life, right? You're giving up some things, and it might be your time, but the thing that one person needs to be able to invest, it's either their time, their people that they know, the contacts, or they have money, right? And you're not going to have all three of those. You might have one or two, until you're wealthy, right? You're not going to have all those things in place, or where you're financially secure. You're not going to have all those things in places. But if you have contacts and you're good at that end, then you're partnering with people, right? We bought our first house with no money down. Our first rental property with no money down. We found a good deal. The bank appraised it. It was appraised far greater than our purchase price, and that was our down payment, the value in the property. That's mind-blowing, isn't it? I see your face.
Yeah. I'm trying to process this because, of course, and I'll tell you the truth. I wonder, I don't know, as I'm looking, let's say, for instance, now, of course, you're in real estate, and real estate is huge market and getting bigger, especially now. We can say here in the Austin, Texas area, we have just exploded. Yeah. Things have changed. The cost of properties I don't want to say they've gone up as though they have just gone up a little bit. They have really gone up. Things have changed. I'm just thinking of getting, though, that first, getting your foot. Okay, let's put me in this place. Let's say I'm the guy that's in your class. I don't have anything to start with. I would like to start some real estate. How do I go about, where would I go even to find something that could work in my favor? Do I find a house to buy? Do I find what would be the route that I would have to take to actually make that thing work for myself?
So it's a question Q&A that we would have, right? So my first question to you would be, okay, so you don't have the money, but do you have time? What are your skills? Can you remodel? Can you do any of that kind of work?
Okay.
Let's say that you have the skills. And I've had actually people tell me, I can't do that. I said, well, can you paint? Can you hold a paintbrush and paint? You don't have to be the skilled worker to replace plumbing. By the way, I do all of this now. I know how to replace pipes. I know how to fix them. I know how to do the plumbing. I don't do it.
Yeah. In that case, I need you to come over to my house. I've got a couple of things that need to be done.
but if you find someone to partner with. So let's say, and here's one of the other good things is that you can partner with your IRA account. So your retirement account, and you can go buy a property if you're in an IRA account. Most people have their money in a 401k, which you can't do that with. But if you transfer it over to an IRA, then you can go buy property and invest in your own property. You can't work on it. You have to have someone else do it. So I'd say, Geri, do you have $5,000 in an IRA account that we could use? Because you might not think, like, I didn't realize I had pension that my attorney helped me see that I can get my hands on and leverage that, which I did as well. That was another strategy that I followed. But if you don't have the 5,000, but let's say you are the skilled worker, but your friend has the $5,000, well, then the two of you partner. One of the easiest and quickest way is to do mobile home flips. Mobile home, there are so many mobile home parks in Texas. And the beauty of mobile homes, if you own them, so some of our rentals are mobile homes. They're manufactured homes. They still call them, it's easy to say mobile homes, but if they're strapped to the ground, they're considered personal property. So there's a huge amount of tax advantages that you get off of that. Property when you buy it. So you obviously have to go meet with your CPA, but there's a significant amount of tax advantages.
So you're the company, tell me this, what you're starting, the company that you guys, the new outreach that you guys have, are you teaching people how to do this?
So is that
what you're doing?
Well, there's going to be stages. So Thrive for Life, my husband and I co-founded it, or founded the company in December of 2022. So I retired in April 2022. We decided we were going to start our nonprofit in that same year. We did some partnering with some programs in Bastrop County, which one of them was Lemonade Day, the entrepreneurship and teaching young students how to be an entrepreneur. But this class is, the first one is called our basics course. And we started in May, once a week. And in there, it's going to teach you the financial component. So you may come just because, well, maybe I need to understand a little bit better. And it's our version because we've been through them all.
But this is your training course, right?
This is our training course. I've written the course myself, and we'll be publishing those documents. It's copyrighted, we're trademarked, all of the good things to keep our property protected. But we'll be teaching you how to live on 70% of your income, how to know where your money's going, how to find your essential and your lifestyle. Because if
how long did it take you to get out of debt?
It took us under 6 years. We had $350,000 worth of debt, no assets other than our house, which you might say your house is an asset, but it's not. Your house does not put money in your pocket. Sadly to say that. I mean, yes, it appreciates, and if you sell it, but right. Okay. So it took us.
Right. I just suddenly feel worse.
I'm not here to make you worse. But it took us 6 years to get out of debt, build a portfolio. I managed some other friends' properties. We have property in Texas, North Carolina, and Indiana, and we have some partnerships that we work with because you're not being here left alone, right?
Right.
And so even at 62, you could start making. You can make, several $1,000s doing a mobile home flip. So the second course will be investment strategies because you do have stock. You do have precious metals. You do have real estate. There's all kinds of ways that you can invest, and learning how to even get a hold of your 401k. There's a lot of people that I can bring in and resources that I know that can help educate folks in different ways, and how to protect yourself as well.
Okay, Jerry, I've got a couple of things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about transition, but real quickly, would you, I mean, we've been talking about this. Would you kind of give in a nutshell what your company is, how they can enter into it, what they can expect once they get there, what's provided for them?
Yep. So Thrive for Life, it's a nonprofit, and our goal is to provide educational resources to anybody and everybody, no matter the age, anyone that's needing it. We are focused on giving you tools and education to cover the various topics around essential life skills,
right,
financial literacy, and career development. That's our focus. So it's thriveforlifetx.org is our website, and people can reach us through that way. Our costs, we're seeking donations. I applied for a grant as well to cover our costs. So our per student, we don't want to charge our students anything. We want them to be able to come and have this given to them for free.
Wow.
That's our goal. So this first basics course is, our cost alone is $32 a student. We have a goal to hit and touch 250 students by the end of next calendar year. And so we're out looking, for funds for people to either volunteer, take the course, or if they're financially able and want to back us to support us with a donation, right? So our goal is to touch people for free.
Is this done in person or is this done online? How are you providing this?
It's going to be a combination of both. This first one will be in person, classroom style, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. And then what I'm doing as well is setting them up and inviting them to do a once a month check-in for a period of time. So likely a year, because that's where you're going to see the sustainability, right? You can learn something, but if you don't apply it, it's worthless knowledge. You have to be able to apply it. And you're going to go up and down. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to need somebody to chat with. So those will be Zoom. And then we'll look to be providing this as well as a fee-based for, through other organizations too.
Yeah. And it's a 4-week course. And how
4 weeks.
much is it? How much did you say?
Well, it's zero. So we're not charging our students anything for this.
Okay. Okay, that sounds just a little bit too good to be true. Well,
Well,
I'm
I mean,
serious because I've watched your life, and I've watched the trajectory that your life has taken over the years, and you have truly moved into a successful mode, and to be able to train people and equip them at no cost,
yeah.
that's amazing. And
Yeah, we
and
want
and
to
are you
reach the underprivileged, the folks that really need it, right? And like I said, we'll provide business ones as well. They'll be a fee based, but for these students that are coming into Bastrop County to join us, there's going to be at no cost to them for these classes that I'm putting on that are sponsored by Thrive for Life.
Wow. And where are those classes going to be held? In Bastrop County,
Uh,
or is it?
Yeah, Bastrop County. So right now we're kicking off May 7th in Elgin. It'll be held at Millie's on Main Street. They've
Okay.
donated their building facility for us to use, so we'll be in their inside room. Seats 20 people. So I actually have, I guess, an invite event where people have to register for it and sign up for it. We want to bring your teenagers, right? We want
No.
families to come. We want them healthy and whole because it is such an economy that it's hard.
Well, they can't. I'm just going to tell you the truth. If people are having a bad time financially, it affects every area of their
Yeah.
life. Those that are in financial trouble, it produces stress, anxiety. The amount of people who have either divorced or just gone off the rail in some way or another because of the financial pressure. And I think this is such an amazing opportunity. I wish somebody had caught me at a very young age and really began to talk to me concerning these things. But you're really pushing for people though that are in transition. They're moving, they're later in life, they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s, and you're basically saying to them, it's not too late for you to start over, to maybe lay the groundwork for another. And that, listen, transition is always coupled with risk, because you're and if you're not willing to take the risk, you end up staying in some place that you hate. You stay there until literally you lose hope. And I think when someone loses hope, their life's over. I mean, they become just almost a mindless machine at that time. Their gifts don't work anymore. There's nothing that comes out of them that produces life when they lose hope. It's just and so I really would like maybe for you to also talk for just a moment about that time of transition when there's a lull. It's a time of transition when you're stepping out of one thing, but the other thing has not completely materialized. It's scary. I know of a couple of people who they're in the process of trying to move out of their business. They're selling their business, or they're transitioning, but yet they're not completely in where they're going. Can you talk about that for just a few moments? Because that's a scary time.
It is. It's tough, right? I did that when I was trying to retire, right? I mean, that's when what I had to really work through was, what is my driving factor? How much time do I have? What can I give to what I want to do? And we're not only just trying to touch, by the way, just on something you said, the older people, it's young people, prevent them from having to go through what we went through, right? It's anybody of any ages. Because if you can get the basic knowledge now, right, then you can get there. But you have to.
And once they make wrong decisions, it takes them down a path whether they want to go or not. And so for 4, 5, 10 years, they're paying the penalty for the foolishness that they did 10 years ago.
Right. So we had what helped you again, everybody's life's going to be slightly different, right? So for me at that point in time, not going any political on this, but with COVID, right? We got out of debt and we weren't out of debt yet, but we were pretty darn close. And we were doing our investments, right? So I was able to make decisions for me personally without somebody making a decision for me, because where I worked, there were decisions being made for me and I was able to move around that. But to back to your question about, people that are in transition, you just have to, I say, write it down, look at what your list is, look at where you're going, know where your vision is. And if you don't know, then you need to be speaking with someone that can help you, right? Kind of see through where that vision is and where do you want to go. You're never going to know all the answers. When we started going in and doing down this real estate venture, we didn't have the answers. I was scared. Like, how am I going to do this? Can I actually do this? And I found gifts. And as I stepped out, I just said yes and started working towards it. Didn't know how I was going to do it. But that's kind of been my motto all along as well. It's like, okay, we need to change, what do you have lined up so that you have a little bit of security, even though there is risk.
It's so hard to be comfortable when you're under pressure like that. But that risk is, to me, that's kind of where life is lived. I feel like people that are not willing to take any risk whatsoever, I don't think they're ever going to step out and do anything extraordinary in their life, maybe never change anything in their life. When you moved out of did you already have yourself established when you left your job, or did you have a time there where you were just in limbo and didn't know what you were going to do?
No, we were established because we started our company in 2016 and started doing our real estate. But at that point, I think we had 3 properties, maybe, making $1,000 a month. I don't even know what the number is, but not a lot, right? It was cash flowing,
Right.
but certainly not enough to live my lifestyle or my essential,
Right.
And so I knew what that number was, and I knew what we needed to make. And so working the 2 jobs, we'll call it the 2 jobs, right? Working my evenings and weekends to do what I needed to do with mentor help. And so that was part of it, is having someone like me being able to be a mentor to help, knowing what I needed to do. In 6 months, I made more than what I made in a year's salary. And I was like, all right, it's time to go and just put this full time.
Yeah.
But that's a choice we made, but some people might not have that choice, right?
Yeah. So what should they do? They don't have that choice. They're kind of in a situation where this door is closing faster than I thought. What do I do during this time? Should they just get some alternate job, something else that can just bring something in while they're doing it, create multiple streams of income? What's the best way to handle that?
You might have to, right? Again, it depends on their numbers, right? So you might have to get that part-time job.
So you're simultaneously trimming down what you have. I'm taking out my cable television.
Right.
I'm eliminating that. Is that part of the process?
That's part of it, is, again, and that's why taking this basics course would really be helpful, because then you're looking at, okay, here is, so it's a few, I'll call it spreadsheets, right? To get a little nerdy here, but here's what I make, here's what I spend. And if my income is going to drop, so when I coach people, which I've coached people several times on these topics, looking at their individual finances, here's what I have, and some of them have no money, right?
Right.
So I didn't have any money in the beginning, but I took a loan against my 401k. I bought a house. You have funds, and you might not know how you can access them. And some people may say, I need to just take it out because I have no income. I need to take my 401k to live on, right? There's that choice. I mean, and again, it's just all of those different decisions, but each person's lifestyle is a little bit unique that you're going through. And if your money's gone tomorrow, you don't have a job tomorrow, then you've got to make sure that you can provide. And that's out looking for a job. And that might be, okay, now I'm going to start my business. I know how to repair houses. Let me go buy one, right? Or I say buy one, I'm talking about a manufactured home, because you could buy those fairly cheap.
Yeah, well, and really, there are if I could use mobile home, manufactured home parks going in all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's quite incredible. People are sizing down because they're not wanting to pay. I don't know how accurate it is, but I heard that in California, in some instances, that there were some homes that they were getting 100-year loans. Literally, that was a generational thing that was having to be passed down to somebody because they couldn't afford it. Wow. And so I think that people are modifying. They're trimming way down by comparison to what they used to, moving into smaller places. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. It's, it's, I think allowing yourself to start small. Most of the kids nowadays, they want to start out with as much as their parents had. And, I remember my first house was like $26,000 and it was a nice little 2-bedroom house. I mean, it truly was, but the economy has changed so much over these years and has grown so much that it's become out of reach for most people. And so, I love to see people just do what they can do. And
Yeah.
I don't think we need as much as we thought we needed. As a matter of fact, quite honestly, I think that's probably one of the greatest revelations that someone can have is I don't need all of that stuff.
Right. I mean, we did that. I mean, when we moved to Texas, we bought a 3,800 square foot house, custom built on a golf course, and neither one of us golf. I was like, what is wrong with us? You're doing what society tells you or what you think society says. And when you said like a statistic, right? I had to start making decisions to do the opposite of what society says. We put a manufactured home is what we live in. We sold that 3,800 square foot home. And we did it very strategically because we bought land. We could have built a custom home. But then one of the things that, again, it was one of those finances have always been at the center of everything. I was like, I don't want to pay the government $10,000 a year in taxes.
Right. Yeah.
So how do I get around this? Right.
Do you have any regrets?
That's a good question. I wish that, no, I'm going to say no, because my regrets, and the reason I'm going to say no is everything that's happened. And I'm so thankful to be able to give back to our community and to do the things that we're doing that I don't have regrets. I try not to think back that way. Obviously I don't like the loss of a child. I never wanted to be divorced, but if I wasn't married and divorced, I wouldn't be happy where I'm at now. So,
isn't that really interesting? Because I was thinking about that for myself. I thought, looking back over my life, would I have changed anything? Do I have regrets? But all of the things that I went through were the very things that made me what I am today in so many ways. Had I taken another turn here or taken another turn there, I wouldn't be here today. And I would have missed out on God knows what. And so
it's interesting you say that. Before I left my early retired, I was trying out for a sales leadership position. And I was told that I'm not in sales, that I wouldn't, I wasn't good for it. I was a service person. And, I had to reflect on that and really kind of decide, am I stuck? Is this the job that I want to do? Just kind of looking through things. And in hindsight, that was the best thing that could happen to me because I didn't need to be working there. I didn't want to be working there. I want to be doing what I'm doing now. Right. And so it helped me. Right.
Well, I'm Geri, I'm not sure that the mindset, and of course I'm always leaning toward what do you do with what you have now? Where are you with what's in your hands right now? Not where you wish you were, but where are you? And I think sometimes when we're in situations that are not ideal, rather than just grind over how much we hate this and we don't like that, and we just to truly take this part of our life and see it as a mission or as a something that, even though I don't understand, is growing me, is developing me. I've watched people in the military. They put them in these boot camps, and dear Lord, they just beat the tar out of them for 8 weeks. But what it builds in them is something that they could have never gotten otherwise. And I'm not sure that, and I want to be careful because some of the hardships there's a tendency to blame God for it. But I'm not sure that had I not been through those hard times that made me cry or broke my heart or really disappointed me, I'm not sure that I would not have missed a very important aspect of life.
Yeah.
Of something. And And so even the ups and downs, and I'm thinking of all of the things that you're saying my life, I was a statistic. I was up and down. I had this tragedy and this problem and this went wrong. I'm not sure that those weren't the very that wasn't the fires that defined you and made you and gave you the inner strength that you have. Because right now, Jerry, you're kind of the person that I don't care what kind of hole they throw you into. You're going to build a restaurant while you're there or something. I mean, it's like no matter where you are. And I don't know that it's not the hardships that you've been through that has defined that has really made you what you are. And we curse those things, not realizing that they're shaping us and building us.
I mean, when you think through those, it's reflecting back, right? Because when you're going through it, it's tough.
Yeah.
Whatever it
terrible.
is, it's terrible. It's tough. You have to, kind of figure it out. And I mean, I've learned all of those things is now, what I apply to life and live life to the fullest.
I got a couple of questions I need to ask you real quick.
Yep.
Basically, we're talking about, or one thing concerning your article is the fact that it's never too late. What do you say to a 55-year-old woman who's listening who feels stuck? Number one.
Yeah, it's definitely not too late. Again, I was 55, right? I was 15. It's like, when I think through all of those different numbers, it's really connecting. And I would say, anybody can reach out to me through Thrive for Life. There's on the website, there's a link, but to be able to just chat with somebody, but you need to make a list of what are the things that you're good at. My sister is an amazing seamstress. She makes quilts, right? She does all these things. And I was like, so, I'm constantly talking to her about, okay, so you can make this or sew that, or, coaching her on different components of that's a skill that she has. Mm-hmm. We often think that the skills we have aren't really skills, they're hobbies, but you likely could make a business out of something.
I wonder if I could make a business out of golf. Maybe not.
Yeah, well, you could be a golf coach.
Yeah, something like that. Well, it is, because I do think of people who they have gotten to this age in life and they feel stuck. They don't know what to do. I want to ask you real quickly, because I want to wrap this thing up, but I want to ask you, what does success look like for you today? Not 20 years ago when you were a teenager, but today, having looked back at all the things that you've dealt with, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, relationally. What does success look like to you?
So success looks like me today. When I think through it, it's being able to do what we do. So for me, we still live a very modest life, right? So we don't have millions of dollars in the bank. We don't have any of that going on, but we're very happy. We are balanced. We are able to, like I said, do our travel, but more importantly, we've never stopped working. And so, you're saying this class for free. Yes, that's success for me. Success is teaching others and giving.
I had to ask that twice because I'm just not used to hearing that.
And that's success. I want to be able to help people see what their potential is. And that's what keeps me going, is when I've coached people and worked with them, is to see their success and helping them measure it, because it might be 5%, 10%. 3 years, you're like, wow, I did make a difference.
Right.
But you got to pick up and start somewhere. And so that's the success for us, is just really kind of that balance and peacefulness, and be able to just give back to our community and help people along.
Your course is 4 weeks long.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. What happens after that?
Then there'll be a monthly accountability call. If they choose to join, they can join. And then we'll be developing what I call our 201, which is really kind of the investment side. Now, that one, I don't know if that one will be free or not, but this first basic one is definitely going to always be free to our community.
Right.
And then, we'll have other offerings that'll be fee-based as well.
So where do you feel like this is going?
So this is our
Geri
legacy.
DeVita?
Yeah.
Where is this going? What's your next step?
This is our legacy. This is where we want this program and this nonprofit to live hundreds of years. I have this vision that it's going to just grow and prosper. Every day when I talk about anything that I do, I'm like, God, this is yours. Yeah. You know what my vision is, and I'm seeing what you want me to do, and help me along. Like this is where we have to go. And so I really feel that it will be along past our life, because we are going to make sure that we fund it past our life as well.
Well, I would just like to throw a little plug in here for you. I'd like to say this because in my experience over the years, I've dealt with so many people who have had literally ups and downs. It is like a roller coaster for their life. And sometimes that's not self-inflicted. Sometimes it just happened to you. Sometimes you got hit. You got hit by something totally unexpected, and you just have almost lost hope. You lost any kind of dreams that you had. But I want to say this is an opportunity for you. As you listen to me right now, and I'm not sure, Geri, how long you're going to maintain this, because I don't know when somebody might hear this particular podcast. But to those listening, I just want to say this is an opportunity that does not come along that often. I know Geri DeVita enough that I can really tell you that I've watched how her life has moved from doing well to really moving into the dream that she has, and she's doing great. She's got an incredible thing going, and what a gift for you. This particular class costs nothing. It can change your life. Financially, it can change your life. Now, you're going to deal also, Geri, real quickly, you're dealing with them financially. Do
Yep.
you deal with them from the standpoint, I mean, face it, they come with a full package. I've got problems at my home. I'm having some health problems. I've got an addiction here. I mean, all of those things, are you going to be addressing any of those things? Are you specifically, well, because they come to you almost like your kid, and they say, I'm having this problem I need help with, but oh, by the way, I'm dragging all of this other stuff behind me. Are you, you're thriving for life. How intense do you become with that?
Well, and it can be, providing information of other resources that are available, right? And so one of the partnerships we're developing is with Unbreakable Enterprises. And so Unbreakable Enterprises is all, different aspects, right? It's family, it's life, it's health, it's wealth, which is what the part that we'll be working with them on. And so there's a lot of resources available, and a lot of people that maybe I potentially can't help, but I can point them to the right, because it's to places where they can go get some support and or services perhaps.
Well, the one thing is that financially, if people can get themselves straightened out financially, it can change their life.
Absolutely everything. You save, somebody makes $50,000 a year, let's say a family, and they save $5,000. I mean, honestly, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 50% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency expense. Think about that.
That seems impossible.
It's a lot of people. Like we just had somebody move out that had, a place that they were renting that I manage, and she couldn't pay her rent, right? So she had to leave, and she only had $65. And it saddens me because, I don't know what's happening to her, right? All I can do is say, here's resources.
She needs to come to a 4-week class. Is what she needs to
save some money, right?
Wow.
But yes, you're right. We're going to touch on I had to open up. The first time I sat down and did financial peace.
Yeah, I remember that.
And at church, and I had a meeting at our kitchen table and had to write out all those expenses and show what that ugly $350,000 number was. And it was horrible. It was frightening. I mean, that's part of, I think, what we offer that sets us apart is we've lived this journey. We've done it.
Let me ask you this, and I hate to just keep dragging this out, but I've just had questions that come up because, you took the financial piece, Dave Ramsey, which was very good, which he is very, very, very much on being out of debt, which being out of debt is a wonderful thing. How much emphasis do you put on being out of debt, being debt free, as opposed to maybe just living your life? I'm maintaining. I'm in debt. I don't know that I can get out of debt for so long. Where's your focus? I mean, his is obviously being totally debt free, which is wonderful, but to a lot of people, they don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
What's your goal in that area? Do you push people to get debt free, or do you work with them within the debt?
So I think it's both, because what I personally did not like about financial peace particular was get debt free, then invest. That did not work for me. I'm 55 years old, right? If I go back when I started, 55, 56 years old, and I'm running out of time in my mind. Running out of time. And I didn't want to go that route. So I did seek training from other financial programs similar to that. And what I've written is our journey, but it's our flow. And so my push is, make sure you're giving your 10%, because that was the first thing we did.
Right.
I was like, I don't have 10%. It was the first thing we did. And then we paid minimums and started looking at that. And we were focused just on getting rid of credit card debt. Credit card interest rates are what, 25, 30%? Like, it's insane, right? Crazy. And we found the fat, which is what of my lifestyle I could give up for a period of time to put towards it.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah. And then I shifted. What we did is we shifted and we said, okay, let's say it was $400 in fat. That went on our credit card to start paying it down the way that financial peace says. Then as anything we earned, anything we sold, how much do you have sitting in your house or garage that you don't even use that you're storing, or a storage unit, right? Go sell it, right? And start now you've got pocket change to start investing in something, even if you're just buying gold, right? You're doing something. So there's ways. So it's a combination. We don't just do the one. It's a combination.
When I first moved here, we moved all of our junk into a storage room. And after a number of years, someone broke into the storage building, and they called us, and they'd taken some stuff out. And I went to look at it, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, I don't want all this junk in my house.
Right.
And I think, how long have we paid? Seriously, we could have built a storage building for as much money as we invested in making it. But you're right. There's a lot of things like that just bleed you. You mentioned a while ago concerning 20%. What was you saying? You took 20%?
20%. So 20% of our income is where we started using it to pay down debt and to invest. And so one of the things that I did early on too is I opened up free checking, but I opened up, I think it was 5 different bank accounts. So I had our personal checking, which, the house payment came out of, right?
Okay.
I had my everyday, and that was the money that was for gas and groceries, the debit card for that. Then I had a wealth checking account. So
wealth checking, what is that?
So I just named my accounts. So I had an everyday, I had a wealth, I had a giving, I had, the household budget kind of one. And a fun budget, because if you're not, you got to have some fun. You can't be, you have to do something. And so that 20% of the income, when I would get paid on auto pay, I had it automatically directed to these accounts. Don't touch the wealth account unless I'm doing something with investing. And then we had the emergency savings account as well. So that was like the 5 accounts. My initially we started with, let's build it to $1,000.
Your emergency account?
Yeah, was $1,000. So we had that. And then,
that's what I was going to ask you. Is there a number that you think a person should go for that says, I need to have an emergency fund that is this? Should they need a target on that?
Yeah, you start out with what you can. Like, we didn't have really any savings either, right? And so ideally you want to get to where you have 6 months of savings, because what happens if you lose that account, that job tomorrow, right? And you have to find a job. It takes longer today to find a job.
Is that your target for a emergency fund for most people, to say, I would like to see you be able to maintain 6 months worth of paying your bills without going under?
Yes. Yep. I mean, that's what you have to, if you, and again, it's going to depend as well too, if you're starting to build cash flowing assets. So something that's giving you money every month, right?
Right.
So don't go buy the new car. But if you wanted the new car and you had, an investment that paid for that car payment, well, isn't that a great way to have it done instead of it coming out of your paycheck? Right. There's just, you just have to look at it differently, but you definitely want to have a savings there. You want to be able, if you're at the minimum where you cannot afford that emergency, 50% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. You want that $1,000 in that account. And if you have to use it, back in the day, we had to use it.
Right.
I mean, there were times when it was like, oh my gosh, this happened. I have to pull out of that account. That next paycheck, I had to rebuild it. And I had to get very diligent and about doing that.
So run over your accounts with me one more time.
We had our regular checking, which was basically our house payment, right? Then I had what I call my everyday checking. So that's going to get gas, going to get groceries, those kinds of, little bits of money, because it was basically, Dave Ramsey teaches you the envelope concept. It's kind of that, but mine were checking accounts, right? And then I had my wealth account, which was my money. So if it was 10% or 20%, ideally you should be putting 20% in there. But if you have debt, you can't do that, right? You have to pay down your debt. So we did a 10 and 10, 10 to debt, 10 to wealth.
Okay.
And then we had our giving account. So that 10% goes straight out of my paycheck into that giving account. And that's where I would give my gifts from. Right.
Okay.
And then, the emergency fund kind of savings account.
Right.
And so that's how we manage things. In fact, and a fun budget. Sorry, I keep forgetting the fun. You have to have fun. We put money in our fun budget account. My husband.
How often should somebody go have fun? And I mean that. How often should somebody plan a vacation? How often should they? And obviously that all depends on what they can afford to do. But you don't have to go spend $1,000 or $1 million just to have fun. You can. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. Yeah, because I'm concerned about the stress factor in all of this. I mean, when people come to this point, there's it isn't just, well, if I just had some money, everything would be right. Sometimes they find themselves under so much stress, they need to alleviate that also. Yeah,
we did. So yeah, how often should you have fun? You should have fun every day. Right. But, and vacations are different, right? So we would always do one vacation, 1 to 2 a year, but you gotta have fun every day. Gotta laugh, have a good time, and you can't, and sometimes that's hard when you're sitting there looking at, debt and bills and all these other things. But if you get a grip and you learn these basics, and you can put this money away. I mean, what does it cost you to go camping at the beach?
Yeah.
The gas in your car.
Yeah.
You're still going to eat.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You take some games, your kids will have a blast. Like, you don't have to go to Disney World where and I don't even know what that costs to go.
Too much. Way too much. But you're right though. And the lifestyles, I think we've just been so deceived in what was important and what wasn't. We've allowed ourselves to be manipulated by television, by what the neighbor's doing, by whatever. We think we have to have that. It's like that with a car with me. Some people are just major into cars. They've almost got to have another one every year. And, I drive a car till it literally falls over dead. I mean, it's just because to me, I can't see myself spending $80,000 on a car and look out my window and just watch it depreciate in my driveway. I mean, it's just it's almost like money is slipping away from me, and I'd rather put that money in other things. Do you think that someone should avoid buying a new car?
I do. I mean, there's times when you have to, and I would say try to pay cash for it, which means when you're done with that car payment, right? Your car payment's 4 or
Right.
5 years. Well, I guess now
Yeah.
they're longer, but put that $500 car payment in the bank account every month when you're done paying it, right? So then you've got the cash to buy the car. And you know, whether it's buying, so my counsel to people would be, it really is, if you're making 30,000 a year, don't buy the new car.
No.
Right? I mean, it's too expensive. You don't need the car payment, even if you can afford that car payment.
Right.
You don't need it. And you know, and then it's, you know, the person who can afford it, that has the good job, right? That's making the $50,000 or $100,000 a year. You don't need the $85 a day Mercedes,
Right.
you know, or whatever it costs you, right? The $1,000
Absolutely.
car payment. You don't need, you know, a truck today is $90,000.
Yeah.
That's more than I pay for my house.
Isn't that crazy? It is. It's true. And the unfortunate thing is in 4 years, it's not worth anything.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
mean,
And like my husband wants, you know, is trying to switch out his truck to a different truck, right? And we already know, like, here's our budget. This is what we're
Yeah.
going to spend. We have to go sell this one first, right? And then we'll have the cash to go buy, you know, what we're looking for. And so sometimes you have to make those decisions as well, because we're not. We say this all the time. It's like, on our deathbed, am I going to go buy a brand new truck? That is never happening. It's too much money.
Yeah. Well, you know, Jerry, and I'm just picking around the edges of the conversation on finance, because I really wanted to just hear. I just wanted to hear your heart. I just wanted to hear you think about these different areas, because a lot of times those aren't the things that people hear.
Right.
You know, just the wisdom or just the common sense about well, like for instance, you said, just on a new car. A lot of people, that's immediately what they think. Or having certain kinds of accounts that you're putting money into, you're saving for whatever.
Right.
And so those are the things that I really am interested in hearing. And I just would like to everyone, this literally, every change in your life that has value starts someplace.
Mhm.
And this is something that I want to encourage everybody listening to say, this could be a starting place for you.
Yes.
You know, it's almost like if I'm doing a diet or an exercise program, it's like I have to have a starting date that says, okay, on this day, I'm changing whatever. Well, I think that this gives such a wonderful opportunity for people to say, this is going to be the beginning of a new change for my life, regardless of what you've been through. And one of the reasons why with Geri, I wanted to bring up just some of the things that she's been through in life is just to say, look, we've all been through them. And you may have been through some things even much worse than what she has gone through. But the fact is, at the end of the day, you can still pull out. Life still will work for you. And this is something that you can use as a starting place, and you can initiate great blessing in your life. Geri, I'll tell you one thing. I truly believe, I really do. I think we are coming into a wonderful season of prosperity. I think that there's ebbs and flows. I think there's highs and lows throughout time of financial opportunity. There was some through some administrations, you know, from the presidency. I think there's some of them that it was not a good time to invest. It was not a good time to buy or sell. But I think we are coming into a great season of prosperity and opportunity. And if people can learn to do with this what you're talking about, it can bring it up to a whole new level of blessing and wealth. So I encourage everyone just to contact Geri. Geri, it's Thrive for Life. How did you have a website? How can they touch base with it?
The website's thriveforlifetx.org.
What is TS?
TX, Texas.
TX. Oh, okay, Texas.
Texas, yeah.
Okay.
Thrive for Life, tx.org is our website. We also have thriveforlifetx@gmail.com, so they can email us and reach out through those two ways.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest to give you right now.
Okay. Well, that is something that boy,
And by
everybody
the way,
needs
there are
that.
still really good deals here. I was just looking up in the Killeen area about property and tax liens and things like that. There are so many opportunities out there if somebody wanted to learn. It's not too late to get in and invest. And
Explain
not
tax
too
lien
late
real
in
quick.
tax liens.
Yep.
Yep.
Explain that.
So tax lien is when you have not paid the government your taxes, they take over your property and they sell
Ah,
it for what's in it. So I watch what goes on, and that's a good way to go buy some property. And again, there's ways of partnering with people or money or other things. So it's a good
wow.
market.
How many times have you taken advantage of that?
I attempted to buy. This was my first time that I've gone through them. So we've tried all the different opportunities out there, and I was bidding and bidding and bidding. And then David was looking at me, my husband, and he was like, "Are you done? Like, stop bidding. What are you doing?" Right. And now I kick myself for not buying it. You want to know why? Where it was? Over
Yeah.
by where this stinking Samsung place is going in. I was like,
Wow.
I could have bought that land cheap, but
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
you
That
know,
is
have regrets sometimes, I guess, of what you didn't buy or what
well,
you.
the opportunities are there, and this opportunity with Thrive for Life is it can be life changing. That could be something. One takeaway I want to say is if you could only give one truth from your story, what would it be?
Say that again.
One truth from your story. Your story
One,
of your life. What would you say that one thing is?
yeah, I still say it's never too late to pick up, right? Never too late to get out there
It's a
and
great story.
learn, right? I mean, that's really what it is. I don't care what your age is or what your life has thrown at you. You can turn it around.
Well, Jerry, you are terrific. I've just enjoyed just hanging out with you and just hearing your heart, visiting with you. Um, I really, really believe that your best days are in front of you. I really do. I just think you've got such a heart of success, and a real belief and a trust that you. I think people get to where they don't believe in themselves anymore, but I really think that what's in you is so big, and I just think that's going to be incredible, and greatest days are ahead. So I want to encourage everyone to please touch base with Geri if you're interested. Uh, this will be something that can make a tremendous difference in your life. It can
Absolutely.
a 4-week series starting when? I guess that's another thing I need to ask.
May 7th.
May
So
7th.
May
Okay.
7th. It's Wednesday night at 5. That way
Okay.
people can still attend and go to church if they're going to Wednesday night service.
How? Yeah, that would be a good idea. How long is the classes?
An hour. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit longer with, to hang out if people had questions, but the class is an hour for 4 Wednesdays in a row. And then we'll start scheduling them. I'm looking to schedule them through churches, through maybe even the
Right.
Bastrop Pregnancy Center, different avenues of where I can get to groups of people.
Yeah. Terrific.
So
Geri, you are wonderful. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you are.
thank you.
You're truly amazing, and greater things are ahead. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. It's so good to have that conversation. Again, I'm just needling her and just trying to pick at the edges of what she thinks and what she feels. Such a wise woman. I'm telling you, God's got his hand on her life in such a great way. Hook up with her. I just feel like there's a point in your life when you say, today my life changes. And I think this can be one of the tools that catapults you into the next level. Something has to do that. And there should always be those things that happen. There should always be an event that takes place that moves you forward. And you need to always be looking for those because they're not every day, but they're events. There's situations, and they'll move you forward, and you'll find life being so rich and so full for yourself. So I want you just to contact her and get involved with it. But appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week at this same time. So God bless you. I'll catch you then. Bye-bye.